Hello everyone and welcome back. Thanks for joining me. I was thinking yesterday when I was out and about with the camera about the choices I make with different subjects and moments, and I thought it might be interesting for you if I just share some of the things that I was thinking about. So here I was yesterday in this beautiful gardens in the New Forest. I'm really wanting to capture the feeling of autumn while I was there. And I was messing around with double exposure, playing around with the different camera settings. So on my Fuji X-T4, I've got 4 settings for multiple exposure in camera: bright, dark, additive and average. I don't really ever use additive and average. Occasionally I might, but in these situations where I'm moving the camera, I'm generally or always going to be using bright or dark. So the first question is, well, what's the difference? So with this one, you can see that I've used dark blend mode because when you make your first shot, it will capture it as an ICM or a straight shot, just as it normally would based on the exposure you've set up in the camera. And then when you take your second shot, probably the easiest way to think of it is it will prioritize the darks. So it will leave all the light colours alone. So everything at the 50% grey and below, brighter, gets left. And everything above that, it will grab. You can see these little dark flecks are because it's on dark blend mode. Your next question is going to be, well, what does light blend mode look like? So here's another one on dark blend mode. So you can see again, you can really just tell when you look briefly that it's prioritised the darks. So here we are on one of my double exposures where I've then zoomed in and I'm using bright blend mode. So I've kind of made much more exaggerated movement to the left, and I flicked this onto bright blend mode to try and bring the world to life a little bit, try and help the viewer or even me remember what a lovely bright feeling it was for that day. I don't particularly like it. It's not an image I'd use, but it's useful to just show you how here you are in the same scene, exactly the same moment. All I've done is change the camera setting from dark blend mode to bright blend mode, and I've got this effect. And what's really interesting then is here we are in exactly the same blend mode, exactly the same moment, literally click and done it again. But because I've made slightly different movement, look how different that looks. So there's the first one and there's the second one. And if you look very closely, you can see my movement. So this movement was much more staccato, for want of a better word. It was much sharper, much smaller, so kind of fast, but on the same shutter speed. So the shutter speed won't solve your problem or answer your questions, the effect you'll get. It's what you do during the shutter speed that matters. So I was on a second. I love using my 1 second shutter speed, whatever I'm doing. It's kind of my go-to. But look at the difference at the image, just because I have made in this one a much more flowing movement. I've used my whole body, and in this one, I've just used my hands. And then coming back to this image, I love this light. The reason I grabbed this moment is because as I was walking past, I noticed the sun coming through. You can see up the top here, the top right of this image, behind this little tree, and then catching the yellow bush behind, and then just creating this pool of light on the ground. And I really loved that. I don't particularly like the camera movement. I don't think it was ideal for this tree. I've got some others, but I just wanted to show you this because for me, because I'm using dark blend mode, it's just made this feel a little bit sharper and darker and more moody than it actually felt in that moment. It felt soft. So I would change my camera settings. I'd probably be using a bright blend mode, or at least while using the dark blend mode, adjusting my exposure between the shots. So taking that first movement, which would have been a horizontal pan, pausing and then adjusting my exposure so I've got a much brighter effect when I make that second movement, even using the dark blend mode. So let's just come through. So this was the other one I really wanted to just linger on for a moment. So here we are, exactly the same little tree. And this first image actually is the first movement that creates this multiple exposure. So this is just a single ICM. All I've done is push in towards the scene. I've got the camera set on bright blend mode, but it won't make any difference for this image because this is a single exposure. You're looking at the first of the two shots that makes up this image. So in this second one, I've then added a similar movement and pushed the camera into the scene to create this multiple exposure. Again, I don't like it. I wouldn't particularly use it, but it's really interesting to look at the effect it's created. It's kind of exaggerated how many leaves there were on these trees, made them a bit more abstract, but it hasn't really given me the effect that I wanted. And I wouldn't want a cross-hatching effect going on here too much on this tree because it didn't feel like that. That feels much too harsh, linear, distant, detached from nature for me. I was trying to bring this tree to life. I'm always thinking, I'm not just going out saying I'm going to make some multiple exposures all the time. I will be looking at the scene and thinking, what will bring this to life in my image? What does this feel like? Is it soft? Is it hard? Am I cold? That's making me kind of tense. Or is it warm and I'm really relaxed with that? So that all is informing the choices that I'm making to try and bring these images to life. And talking about creative choices, one of the other things that's really interesting to me is this is the harbour. And I'm going to show you another image that I shared last week. This is also the harbour. Let me just fill the screen. So they're exactly the same size. There we go. And again, exactly the same place. I am stood in exactly the same place. The only difference is this image is a single embodied intentional camera movement where I've breathed the camera up, but I've not made any second exposure over the top. Whereas this one was a double exposure in camera on the Fuji X-T4 using dark blend mode, if you've guessed it, because you can see the priority here has been the darks for the camera. It's picked up the darks much more strongly in that second shot. And it would have been a huge mistake to choose anything else because the sun was coming up and it was blinding. So if I had tried to use bright blend mode, I would have really struggled because it would have picked up the brightness a second time over. And I didn't want to be trying to even attempting to do that. So if you're wondering, again, I'm on 1 second exposure on both of these, all three of these images, because this is one shot panning up. This was a summer's evening. And during my 1 second, in fact, I'm lying, this was on a longer exposure. This, I think, was about 2 or 3 seconds long. Hard to remember now. And what I've done is when I've depressed the shutter, I've paused before I've moved, which is why you can see the outline of the boat. And I did it on purpose because I wanted to capture this reflection detail, this gorgeous pool of light and some of the cloud detail above. So then I've done my pause and then I've panned upwards. And then on this one, because it's double exposure, I have just moved. So on 1 second, I would have started, panned across. I always do my horizontal pan first, paused, probably reset the camera because the light was so bright, I almost certainly made it darker, my exposure darker for my second shot, panning upwards. And the stretching effect on these yachts, I absolutely love. And I've kept that line straight using my embodied breath work as I make that movement. So the other thing that I wanted to share with you here that's worth bearing in mind is your white balance setting on the camera, because I've changed it. So I will play around with that, and I use fluorescent quite a bit. So I know with this, it was on fluorescent, which has made it very, very blue and purpley on this summer's evening. This, by contrast, is very early on a winter's morning. I say very early, it was a sunrise time, whatever time that was, only 2 weeks ago. And so I have played around with my white balance setting, and it was either on sunny or cloudy. It was one of the two, but I definitely haven't used fluorescent for this. And look what a difference it makes. So as a creative choice, just play around, just flick the button, flick the switch, and just have a look and see what you get in your screen before you take those shots. Or even better, take several shots. have 3 or 4 goes at it using different white balance settings in camera and just see what you get. Okay, so I hope that helps you a little bit with your creativity and your thinking and how I'm thinking when I do these. And I look forward to speaking to you again next time. Don't forget, if you viewed this on YouTube, I have written a Substack article to go with it. The link is in the description for this video. And I will be teaching starting next year live online in April. I'm taking very small groups of just 4 at a time onto courses in intentional embodied camera movement, multiple exposure, connecting to our world, drawing on my background in human ecology, and also artful editing in Photoshop. So I would love to see you there. If you want to join me, you'll find all the details and links to my website in the description of this video. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.